A new Kinefinity MAVO Edge 8K large sensor camera has been just announced.
The Cinema 5D virtual show is brought to you by B&H, the professional source for all your video needs. CVP, the leading specialist in creative cine, video and photo solutions. Manfrotto, imagine more. Fujifilm, value from innovation. And SERP, better films.
Hi, I'm Johnny from Cinema 5D and welcome to our virtual show. Today I have a special guest and this is Michel from Kinefinity Europe. Michel, how are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us, and it's a day to celebrate because you just announced the Kinefinity MAVO Edge. Congratulations. Michel, before everybody jumps on us, just to let you know guys, there is still no footage exists from the new camera, so you will have to suffer my face to radio, and Michel is a great guy, so it's going to be just a conversation between us about the newly announced Kinefinity MAVO Edge. So can you please tell me a little bit, first of all, about you and Kinefinity Europe?
My name is Michel, and my company is in charge of the distribution for Kinefinity in Europe. And we are also the European-based service center. I have been working with Kinefinity for the last 7 years, so since about 2013. And so this means that I have witnessed and taken part in all of the camera releases from Kinefinity ever after their very first camera.
This is 8K camera. So let's talk a little bit about the sensor. How big is it?
Okay, so yeah, it's a large format sensor, and there are two things to consider. One is the actual physical size of the sensor, which is 36 by 24 millimeter. It's a 3:2 ratio sensor, which is actually the same dimensions as the MAVO LF from the previous model. However, this time it's an 8K sensor, so that's the second thing to consider, which is the pixel count. It's 45 million pixels, which it is currently one of the biggest pixel counts in cameras out there, and probably going to be for a while to come.
Let's do a quick rundown of the different frame rates and resolutions that the MAVO Edge has.
At 8K open gate, it can do up to 48 frames per second. So open gate is the full sensor size, full readout. Now, as we reduce the height of the sensor, the frames per second will increase. For example, 60 frames in DCI mode and 75 frames in the wide mode. Now, though it's an 8K sensor, it can also record in 6K and 4K in the full frame sensor mode. And it does that by what is called oversampling or pixel binning, line skipping. And and therefore you can actually record lower resolutions with the full sensor readout and with the full sensor framing, and you don't lose the full frame aspect ratio. Then of course we have various sensor crops like Super 35, Micro Four Thirds, and that's when you can achieve the higher frame rates. For example, 4K DCI 120 frames per second, 4K wide 160 frames per second, and 300 frames in 2K.
Let's talk about something completely new, and it's for the first time that now in the camera you have ProRes RAW. What led you to introduce this Kodak with this camera?
As you know, ProRes is one of the most widely accepted codecs, and also supported by most major softwares. And from that point, ProRes is very desirable for any camera manufacturer. Now, RAW, of course, on the other hand, offering more flexibility in post thanks to its 12-bit color depth. So ProRes RAW presumably is going to combine these two elements into a very powerful codec, and that's why it's advantageous to have it inside the MAVO Edge.
Do you know if the hardware in the camera is also capable to accommodate Blackmagic RAW? And if yes, are there any plans to implement it in the camera so there's like even more flexibility?
I would say the hardware is capable of implementing, of working with Blackmagic RAW, but as of now I don't know of any plans to actually implement it in the near future.
With such high resolution and diversity of frame rates, how do you maintain a smooth recording? Do you use SSDs or anything new that you introduced in this specific camera?
Yes, something new, namely the MAVO Edge is using M2 SSDs. M2 SSDs are the next generation of SSDs which can support data rates which are several times higher than those of traditional SATA 3.0 SSDs. As a reference, the SATA 3.0 SSDs are limited to about 600 megabyte per second, and M2 SSDs, the theoretical limit is about 3500. So that's more than 6 times higher. Now, if the MAVO Edge can actually achieve these 3500 megabyte per second, I don't know. There might be another bottleneck somewhere in the system, but overall, the writing capacity, the data rate that the camera can support is greatly increased in this new media system. Yeah.
And do you have only one way or one slot to record? Do you have dual slot, or can you record simultaneously for backup, or it's only the main recording and then proxy? How is the combination?
Yeah, so all of the above. It's a 2-slot media system, which means you can either record the same clips simultaneously, so as a backup in case if one SSD fails, or you can record, for example, RAW, and then at the same time a proxy of the same footage, which will save you a lot of time in post.
You told me before that this camera also has dual ISO, and this function is becoming very popular with some camera manufacturers. How did you implement it in this MAVO Edge?
Yeah, so the principle is the same as with many cameras nowadays, same as with the MAVO LF or the Terra 4K. So you have 2 base ISOs, a lower one, 800 in this case, and a higher one of 3200. And somewhere in between the two, there is a border when either if you are on the left or the right of that border value, the camera will automatically switch from one base ISO to the other.
Okay, now if I will put 2000 or I will use 2000, what will happen then?
Presumably the 2000 will be among the 3200 base ISO. And so what happens if you select 2000 is that the camera will use the higher base ISO, 3200, which is closer to that 2000 value which you desire, and then apply a negative analog gain to the sensor to bring the sensitivity down to 2000.
And you also introduced for the first time an electronic ND within the camera. Tell me a little bit about this functionality, about the functionality of this feature.
Yeah, so the internal NDs are located between the OLPF and the sensor. It's a motorized system which will exchange the clear and the END optical elements. Now, the clear element obviously has a 0 stops of ND, and the END optical element has a range from 2 to 7.6 stops of ND. And you can change then on the camera, so with the push of a button it will exchange the clear with the END element, and then you can dial with the wheel the exact ND value which you want, and the increments are in 1/10 of a stop, so it's almost seamless.
Okay, let's move to the camera mounts. Kinefinity was always very known for the flexibility in mounts. If I'm not mistaken, you used to have your own mount at the end of the camera, and then another mount that can talk to different lenses. Is that the case also with the MAVO Edge?
Yes, exactly. So the MAVO Edge will continue the legacy of the KineMount, which is Kinefinity's exchangeable lens mount system, and then the existing line of adapters is compatible with the MAVO Edge. So we have Sony E, EF, PL and LPL adapters.
What's the secret to keep the camera so small and also so lightweight?
The main reason for its low weight is that the MAVO Edge has a carbon fiber body. Carbon fiber is known to be lightweight and yet sturdy and robust at the same time. On top of that, as you know, Kinefinity has been striving for many years to make their cameras smaller, more compact and more lightweight, and they have very skilled designers who manage to package more and more features into a smaller and smaller camera body. So if you look at the features the MAVO Edge will offer, like the V-mount power, XLR and END, those are all things which with previous cameras, at least with the MAVO LF, you needed to use external accessories. And now with the MAVO Edge, those features are already included in the 1.2 kilos of its body.
When it comes to monitoring the footage while recording or later on when when using the playback function, of course I can connect the camera to a EVF or to a monitor in a wired way, but you also have a new thing that you implemented. It's like live H.264. What exactly this is doing? So
it works through the camera's Wi-Fi module, and where you would connect with an app and an iOS device, and then you get a H.264 stream onto your iPhone or iPad with a very low latency and a 1080p resolution. And if you wonder why H.264, well, simply because it has a very low data rate and offers for a low latency.
Let's move on and talk about options of powering the new camera. Please elaborate.
There are a total of 4 different ways that you can power this camera. You have V-mount, BPU style batteries, NPF style batteries, and the AC adapter, of course. So the V-mount and BPU batteries are integrated in the rear plate of the camera, so nothing special there. The third option, however, is quite special because it's built into a camera base plate, which is part of a cage of a shoulder rig made by MOVCAM. So it's not actually part of the camera. It's a, if you will, a third-party accessory, but custom designed for the MAVO Edge. And there you will have 2 slots for F55 NPF 550 batteries, which can either power the camera all by themselves, or you can use it as a UPS, as an uninterruptible power system to hot swap the batteries of the camera.
And for those who would like to purchase the camera in the US, what options do they have?
I know they are currently talking to different companies, but I can't tell you which ones they are because nothing is confirmed. But I have a feeling that in the time that this camera will be launched, there will be a proper US distribution or dealer setup. And in the meantime, we have Origin Cine, which is a rental based in Burbank, California, which is currently handling the support for Kinefinity, and purchase currently go still through China directly.
Michel, what about the original MAVO LF? Will Kinefinity continue to produce it, or it's end of life for that camera?
They will continue to produce it, they will continue to update it, and full support. It's still going to be a great camera, and we are expecting to support this camera until at least the end of 2021.
So that means you will continue to update the firmware or add features, whatever you think that is still possible to do within the processor, sensor, and body.
Yes, exactly. Within the possible of the hardware, Kinefinity will continue to implement new features.
And how about the price? Is the price has been reduced a little bit?
Yes, actually the price had been reduced already in February this year to from 12,000 down to 8,000 for the body.
Okay, the Kinefinity MAVO Edge, one of the most important things, pricing and availability.
All right, so the pricing starts just like the MAVO LF used to be, namely at 11,999, so $12,000, euros, all the same. And the target shipping date is September 2020.
Michelle, thank you very much for joining me. It's really a pleasure to talk to you. And of course, best of luck with the new camera. It sounds very exciting. And yeah, guys, thank you very much for watching. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.